You're a big family. Well, after that wonderful satsang by Brother Chidananda last night, it was just so nice and so complete. And then when I arrived home at the ashram, I thought, oh. And I thought what to do for today's class. But then I thought, and one of the points that Brother G made so convincingly was this need to take any delusion that we can't make it or we can't have spiritual experiences and just throw that out of our consciousness and hold steadfast to that conviction, that divine conviction that really comes from our soul, that the beautiful experiences that our Gurudev spoke about and that he himself had, we too can have. And I hope that when we now return home from convocation, we'll carry with us not just that inspiring feeling of fellowship, that wonderful feeling we felt all week, but also that deep, soul-born conviction that what Master has is for us too. And so when I thought these things, then I thought, no, it's right and proper, and it will work well, I think, to follow that wonderful satsang with a class on faith. And so, ready or not, here we go. Some people, they think of faith as belief. I have faith. I believe in God. But faith is something much deeper and much stronger. It's not belief. It comes from experience. It's an intuitive experience. Now, we don't say belief is a bad thing. You have to believe, that Kriya Yoga is nice. Otherwise, you'll never try. But you have to test it. You have to take your belief and follow it with spiritual action. And that's how we discover the meaning of true faith. If you take these teachings and practice them, not for a little while, but for a long, long time, months and years, making it your real life's dedication, if you do it, sometimes when you least expect it, you'll come to the point and all of a sudden you'll realize, oh my goodness, it's been a total, complete transformation for me. It will just be like the little caterpillar crawling on the ground, changing into the beautiful butterfly. And our Guru uses that illustration. The soul cutting through the cocoon of ignorance, emerging the butterfly of omnipresence. That's what's waiting for us. When we practice the Kriya Yoga, every cell of your brain, every thought, every feeling, every spark of your consciousness is being spiritualized with God's light. And you're beginning to touch the consciousness of God. And that's the faith that we want. I think of Sri Dayamata, who came here many times through the years and spoke at these convocations. And I was always so taken with it because often her words and her message were very simple. I remember one year, and her message was basically meditate, ask God to guide, go forward. But when she spoke, We were totally, completely absorbed. There was oneness with her. Why? It was the power of her knowing God. And you could feel it. That's the power of faith. That's what we want. It's strong, it's dynamic, it's powerful, it's magnetic, and it comes as we practice the teachings. Guruji says, real faith is rooted in intuitive realization of God. Now, we understand life is difficult, sometimes very difficult, huh? Because each one of us in our search for God has to contend with the opposing forces of delusion, that cosmic force that's always trying to pull you down, always trying to pull you away from God. At times, we do the wrong things. We make bad decisions. We fall into the ruts of bad habits. When you're struggling, remember one thing. Your struggle, that's temporary. That's temporary. But God and God's love for you as His perfect child, that's forever. Guruji said, God has deliberately created each man with an eternal stamp of his own perfection. By succumbing to evil for a while or for long periods, man can eclipse the inner perception of his soul, but he can never destroy it. As soon as he removes the enveloping delusion that persists through his own ignorance, he finds he has always been perfect, even as God is, and never was otherwise. It is this innate perfection, this permanent wisdom state of the soul, that is the divine spring from which faith flows. You can cover it up, you can act against it, you can ignore it, but that divinity which you are is always, always trying to express. And at some point we respond, and then it starts its irrepressible flow into our lives as faith. Because you think about it, something inside you from your earliest memories has always rebelled at the thought of sickness, or old age, death, limitation of any kind. That something is you. That's your soul, because it knows you are eternal joy, indestructible consciousness. And the way we realize this, not just as an idea, but the way we experience this is as we practice the teachings. For example, I find that sometimes some don't fully appreciate the value, the benefit of the energization exercises. Now, sure, they raise the vitality of the body, and they recharge the body with fresh cosmic energy and balance the life force throughout the body, removing knot points of tension. They do all these wonderful things. But also, if you practice them faithfully, always trying to deeply concentrate on your practice, they give the realization that we're not just these little physical machines, but we're that divine consciousness, that inexhaustible energy that for a time resides within and enlivens and empowers the little machine, but is far, far beyond the machine. So as we really devote ourselves to these exercises, we begin to feel and experience ourselves in that way. There's a story from the life of Jesus where he was hungry, and in the distance he saw a fig tree, and so he went over to it, and it had no fruit on it. And so then he said, "Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever." And the tree just withered up. And Master explains this shows the human side of great masters, where Jesus was hungry and he was disappointed when there was no fruit. But you know, nothing in the life of these great masters happens without significance. Because when the disciples marveled at how the tree just responded so readily to his command, that's when Jesus said his words that became very, very famous. He said, "Verily I say unto you, if ye have faith and doubt not, ye shall not only do this which is done to the fig tree, but also if ye shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done." So Jesus is saying if we have faith, and this doesn't mean little flimsy faith based on a little weak belief. Jesus is saying if you have faith that is grounded in your own true experience of God, you have the power to move mountains, meaning to change creation. The purpose of Kriya Yoga, the purpose of everything our Guru teaches, is to take us from limited human consciousness to that all-powerful, all-accomplishing divine consciousness. The consciousness that Jesus so perfectly manifested, that our own Guru so perfectly manifested. If you have a computer, and it's a real fast computer with all the bells and whistles, but if you operate it without your internet connection, it's, very limited. But through the internet, your little computer is hooked up to this vast world network of computers, and then it can do all kinds of things. Our souls are eternally connected to that great consciousness of God. The little mind, no matter how brilliant, the little mind is limited. But if you go to your connection with the cosmic mind, the universal mind, God, the source of all love, all wisdom, all strength, all inspiration, then there's no limits to what you can accomplish. And so that's what Jesus meant when he said, if ye have faith, ye shall say to this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea. Faith means experiencing our connection with the cosmic mind, the cosmic power, the cosmic love, God. I have a brother, and from the youngest age, he always loved ocean and the boats. And so I was about 9 years old when he got his first boat, a little tiny rowboat. And we were all excited, and we took it to Los Angeles Harbor, where I grew up in Los Angeles. And we launched the boat, and there were 4 kids in the boat, and none of us had ever been in a boat before. Wait till you hear. And so we were having great fun rowing around the harbor. But what we didn't know was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the conditions change. And a strong wind comes in and the waves whip up. So all of a sudden, we're in this little boat. There's a stiff wind, waves about 5-6 feet high, and we're rowing like crazy and we're losing ground. The current is taking us out to the open ocean. So we're scared to death in this little tiny boat. And out of nowhere, this big luxury yacht pulls up near us. And I look up, and I'll never forget, these people are on the deck. There's tables have been placed there, and they're having a cocktail party. So they're sipping their cocktails, looking down on these crazy kids who are in trouble in this little boat, and we're yelling, "Help!" And they called the Coast Guard, who came and towed us back to the beach. But I can still see it so vividly, like it happened to me just yesterday, where we're in that little tiny boat being thrown around, scared to death, and the people in the big boat are serenely sipping their cocktails. And I thought there's a lesson here. Because we all are on the same ocean. We call it life. And sometimes the waves are quite big. The troubles, the tests, it can be pretty overwhelming. If you stay in the consciousness of the little boat, you think, I'm this little man or I'm this little woman with all my problems. If you let things like anger or frustration or worry take over your consciousness, the ride's very, very tough. It's frightening. But if you go to the big boat and keep your consciousness there, if you realize, I am not this limited body, I am not this limited mind, I am the Atma, the unlimited, ever blissful soul, made in God's image. In that consciousness, you can still be in the rough waters, but inwardly, you're grounded, centered. There's a divine sense of security, of protection, that everything is okay. And so when you're going through the day, when you get ruffled, a good question to ask is, which boat am I in right now? The question, of course, how do you get there to the big boat? How do you attain that consciousness that I am not just a physical form, but I am made in the image of God? How do you truly feel that and experience it? This is the question that's answered by the science of Kriya Yoga. Reading from the Bhagavad Gita. With the soul united to spirit by yoga, with a vision of equality for all things, the yogi beholds his self spirit united in all creatures, and all creatures in the spirit. With the soul united to spirit by yoga. The power of Kriya Yoga, it works with the very thing that binds us to delusion, which is the life force. When the life force is flowing outward to the sensory nerves, this whole thing is real. We're totally in it. We don't know anything else. But through the pranayama, the life force control of Kriya Yoga, gradually we learn to reverse the flow, pulling it away from the sensory nerves into and up the spine to the higher chakras, the astral centers of spiritual perception and experience. And then we discover a whole blissful realm that we never even imagined. Guruji said, Kriya is the scientific way of changing material body consciousness into spiritual cosmic consciousness. If you go to the movies and you're in the theater waiting for the movie to begin, and you're with your friends and you're having a nice conversation and it's kind of animated, you're really into talking with your friends. But then what happens? The theater darkens and the movie begins, and there's such an intensity of sound and hearing that your attention is just sucked right up into that movie. And you forget all about your friends and your conversation, and for the next couple hours, you're just mesmerized. Now that's an ordinary movie. That works on the sight and the hearing. But when you were born, as soon as that little baby body was pushed out of your mommy's womb, you took your first breath, and the 5 senses started working on you, and the movie began. And it's been going nonstop ever since. And it's 10,000 times as compelling as anything you've ever seen in a theater. Because you can not only see it and hear it, you can touch it and feel it, you can taste it, you can smell it. We're totally captured by it. The beauty, the power of Kriya Yoga, it turns off the movie. And then that attention that is freed, you're free to use it to experience that, who you really are. Blissful image of a God. Joyous beyond what we can even imagine on this plane. In the Upanishads of India, it says, if thou canst transcend the body and perceive thyself as spirit, thou shalt be eternally blissful, free from all pain. Years ago, I was with another monk, and we had gone to one of the meditation centers to give a weekend of programs. And after the Sunday service, a devotee came up to us, and he said, my brother is very, very ill, and he's in the hospital. Can you please come and see him? And so we naturally said, yes, of course, we'll go. And so we did. And I think it was one of the most difficult hospital visits I've ever made. The brother, he was a young man in his 30s. He had a brain tumor in the advanced stages. He wasn't a devotee, and he was very, very angry with God. His wife was there, a young, beautiful woman in probably her 30s, and she was very, very angry. Also, they had 3 children, and the children were completely distressed. And you could see this family, their whole world had been just shattered. I tried to give some words of comfort, and nothing worked. I just couldn't get through the fear and anger. But then, through the grace of Guru, I was inspired, and I said to him, would you mind if I just led you through a little meditation? And he didn't want to do it. But somehow, through God's grace, I talked him into it. Wasn't long, maybe about 5-10 minutes. But as I led the family through the meditation, I just had that sense, God is here. There is a presence here. There is a blessing there. And afterwards, he looked at me and he just said, thank you. And I could tell that at least momentarily, with God's help, we had gotten through, and he had had a little glimpse that there was something beyond that terrible movie that he was seeing at that point in time. The answer to our struggles, there's only one answer. Discover your oneness with God. It's the only way. Discover your oneness with God. That's the only thing that is real. And that comes as we practice the teachings and the meditation techniques our Guru gives. Diving in that inner communion that is waiting for each and every one of us. Guruji said, God's voice is silence. Only when restless thoughts cease can one hear the voice of God communicating through the silence of intuition. In the devotee silence, God's silence ceases. In the devotee silence, God's silence ceases. Meditation brings stillness. And in the stillness, the intuition of the soul becomes active. And through that intuition, we're led to a state of understanding. And it's not an understanding like of the little reasoning mind. It's much bigger than that. The understanding that we experience in meditation, it's really a reflection of our attunement with that omnipresent, guiding, intelligent presence of God, which is the cosmic Om. And as that attunement widens and gets deeper, we're led into a state of deep inner communion where we experience, sometimes I think of it, the great goodness of God. The great goodness of God, which includes God is peace, God is love, God is joy, God is wisdom. And when you put this whole thing together, the meditation, bringing stillness, activating the intuition, leading us to understanding, which is a reflection of that deep attunement with the Holy Om, which is a doorway into the inner communion with God. The sum total of this process is faith. It's a living faith, a living open channel through which God just pours his love and joy and ultimately bliss into us. Of course, you just have to keep patiently making the effort, because even with the Kriya Yoga, it takes time. It takes time. I loved what Brother Bhaktinanda once told some of us monks, the very saintly monk who was here when Master was here. He looked at us once and he said, spiritual effort, seeking God, in his very matter-of-fact way. Seeking God, it's like anything else. Sooner or later, you get a breakthrough. If you're having trouble at times when you meditate, if the heart feels dry at times when you're pursuing your spiritual practices, if you feel a lack of enthusiasm, the answer always is, just keep practicing. There's a beautiful account that by a devotee, we published this in our magazine some years ago. I'll read it. I have practiced Kriya Yoga for 45 years. For more than 20 years, my meditations were dry, but I kept on with my twice daily practice. Now, in my later years, I am blessed beyond the ability of words to convey. Recently, in deep meditation, after practicing Kriya, I asked the Master, what is cosmic peace? There was silence. I went deeper in meditation, and gradually I felt a wave of blissful peace ascending from the lower spine upward toward the higher spinal centers and spreading all over the body. Perception of peace never known before. In this light of blissful peace, I felt the body was melting away, and my soul was ascending and expanding in waves of love. In ever deeper meditation, my soul entered an even higher level of blissful peace, a state of vibrationless, perfect, sweet tranquility, and I knew that for a brief instant, I was home. So, we've talked some about Kriya Yoga and meditation, and that's very important, but also devotion. There always has to be the devotional aspect to seeking God. And I say this because sometimes I'll run across devotees who they just give me the Kriya Yoga. I'm not so good at devotion. Doesn't work that way. Master was absolutely clear, you need both. He once said this, I knew a devotee in India who for years so enjoyed the practice of yoga techniques that he forgot to love God. He was a spiritual robot, accomplished in the mechanics of yoga, but lacking its heart and spirit, which is God communion. We can never win God by meditating for so many hundreds or thousands of hours. We can never win God by doing so many thousands or millions of Kriya. It doesn't work that way. To put it bluntly, God is not for sale. But when we faithfully meditate to the best of our ability and we're sincere, we sincerely offer him our hearts, then he finds us completely irresistible. That's the magic of seeking God. Sometimes, I know we can get discouraged. If your body is troublesome when you sit to meditate, and I know in the senior years that can happen more, or if the mind resists you, take it in stride. Give it to God. Just say, Lord, you know I'm doing my best. You know I love you. You have the power to take this thing away instantly. Unite me with thy consciousness. Just talk to him one-on-one. Pour your heart out. And if at times you make mistakes, you do things that aren't the right thing, well, in this world of duality, it's kind of hard to be perfect all the time. But if you're doing your best and you keep trying to pick yourself up and improve, in God's eyes, you are that perfect devotee, and that's the truth. I always liked this little story I came across. This eagle was flying, and he saw this little bird lying on the ground on its back with the feet up in the air. And so he thought, that's really strange. And so he flew down and he said to the little bird, what in the world are you doing? And the little bird said, the sky is falling. The sky is falling and I'm trying to hold it up. And the eagle laughed and he said, you're the silliest thing I've ever seen. Do you really think a puny little bird like you is going to make any difference? And the little bird just glared at him and said, one does what one can. If you want the golden rule of the spiritual path, when it seems you can't do it, just tell God and Guru one does what one can. And then do it. Do it. You know, we often will speak about attunement with the Guru. What is attunement with the Guru? as we practice the teachings, as we try to model our lives after that wonderful, ideal example of our Guru, there comes a growing sense of feeling within you, Master is happy with me. Master is happy with me. It's not a thought. It's a feeling from the heart, the center of intuition. You know your life is moving rightly, and you know the Guru is pleased. You just know that with every fiber of your being. And when you know that, when you know your Guru is by your side and he's very pleased with you, then there's just no challenge, no problem, no test you cannot face with courage and strength and inspiration. Attunement with the Guru, it's one of the highest manifestations of faith. So, as much as we talk about the science of Kriya Yoga, and that's very important, we also emphasize that personal relationship with God. Master said, God's love is so all-embracing that no matter what wrongs we have done, he forgives us. If we love him with all our hearts, he wipes out our karma. One way to make that relationship with God deep is to ask him to help you. Sounds very simple, and it is, and it's also a very, very powerful technique. You know, Master talks a lot about prayer, and one thing he says is when you pray to God, don't pray as a beggar. You know, Lord, I really need this, but I don't even know if you're listening. And if you do, you probably don't even care. Well, who's going to get a response like that? Master says, the secret of effective prayer is to change your status from beggar to child of God. When you appeal to him from that consciousness, your prayer will have both power and wisdom. And Master was like that with God. There's a wonderful story he tells where he used to drive a lot between Encinitas and Mount Washington. Well, around midway between the two, there's a little beach town called Laguna Beach. And they used to stop there, driving back and forth once in a while for a dessert. And so Master tells how he sent in the devotees to get some, what he called Scotch bread. Now, I think what he meant was today we would call it shortbread, like shortbread cookies, but back then the word Master used was Scotch bread. And so the student went into the store and he came back with fudge. And Master said, why did you get fudge? I told you Scotch bread. And the student said, well, the ladies in the store, they only had one package left and they reserved it for someone and they said they can't give it to me. And so Master looked up and he said, Mother of the universe, Mother of the universe, what is this? I believe that you would give. And immediately he saw this great light above him, and it went over the little cottage where the store was, and it went into the cottage. And Master's car was parked way at the other end of a crowded parking lot, but one of the ladies came running out, and she found them, and she said to the student, here, you take this package. I'll make some excuse to the other party. And Master just looked at the student and said, there's your Scotch bread. And Master cried because the Mother of the universe had heard him and she had looked after him. When you live for God and you try to please God with your life and you're always, always, always loving him, he looks after you. He really does. If you're alert, you'll see. He looks after you. I remember some years ago, I needed a chair for my room. And so one of the monks took me out shopping for chairs. And we went to this used furniture store, and I found a chair, and it was a little small and a little flimsy, but as they say, the price was right. And so we found out when the closing time was, because I wanted to look a little more. But I told the monk, well, if we can't find anything better, we'll come back before closing time and buy this chair. And then the next store he took me to was a very nice store, and I found the perfect chair. It was sturdy, it fit perfectly, and it was 5 times the price. And so I told the monk, well, there's no way I can afford this chair. We still have time. Let's go back to the first store and I'll get that chair. So we returned, and we were about 10 minutes before closing time, and it was the strangest thing, because when the owner of the store saw us, and we had told him we'd be coming back probably, he pretended he didn't see us. He locked up the store, looking the other way. He walked quickly to his car and drove off. And the other monk looked at me and he said, wow, Master really doesn't want you to have that chair. The story's not over. Because when we returned to the ashram, about an hour later, I got a call from another monk, and he said, are you still looking for a chair? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, the nuns called. A chair was donated to them, but it's too big. You want to take a look? So we went. And the chair that had been donated was an exact replica of the chair I liked so much but couldn't afford. It was brand new. It was wrapped in plastic. And then I realized why that owner of the store had acted so crazy. Divine Mother didn't want him to spoil her surprise. But the truth is, if you look in your own life, these things happen all the time. And they happen so naturally, it's easy to pass them by and think that's a nice coincidence. But if you're alert, often you'll realize, no, it's not a coincidence. God was there. And then it becomes very sweet in a quiet moment to just take time out and say, thank you, God. You do indeed look after your devotee. Thank you. Now, of course, in the life of every devotee, there's times when it really gets tough, and even our blessed Master, you think about it, where Master was divinely ordained. Babaji came to him and told him, you are the one. Sri Yukteswar told him, you are the one. And yet it was one struggle after another in building the work, one heartache after another. What a wonderful example our Guru is for all of us who carry our lesser burdens. Master tells when he got Mount Washington, he had made an offer and it was accepted, so he raised money from his students all over the country, but the day before the escrow was closing, he was $5,000 short. So he was in a bit of a pickle. And here's how Master describes it. I consulted all the students, but no more funds were forthcoming. That was a test of the Lord. I have to fight for what I accomplish just like any other person. God always comes to my aid in the end, but he makes me work for it. The students had been coming to me telling me not to worry, that everything would be all right. Don't tell me everything will be all right, I said. Why do you not get busy at once? God helps them who help themselves. I prayed to the Lord unceasingly for an hour. Why have you done this to me? Is it fair of you to treat me this way? It is you who brought me to the West. That hour of prayerful struggle seemed to last a year. Then I heard the Lord say, all right, go to bed. My faith was strengthened. On the way to my room, a miraculous incident happened. A nearby window burst open, a great gust of wind hit my face, my eyes fell on the telephone, and simultaneously I remembered Mrs. Julia Trask. We had met only twice, but I felt my sudden remembrance of her was a sign from God. I hunted for her name in the telephone book and called her. Yes, she said, I will give you $200 tomorrow. But $200 would not be enough to help, I explained. Then she said, there is $5,000 I lent to someone, never expecting it to be returned. That money has been paid back. Will you take it on a second mortgage without interest? Yes, indeed, I exclaimed gratefully. But please, be at the escrow office at noon tomorrow, or we may lose the opportunity. When we met there the next day, a man was waiting with an offer to buy the property for $10,000 more than we had offered. But because God had helped us meet the deadline, Mount Washington was ours. So as the blessed guru had to work very, very hard, so do we, isn't it? But realize that every time you try to solve a problem, but first you ask God and Guru to help you, and then you go forth with your indomitable will, that's a manifestation of faith. Expressing that positive, undaunting spirit when the going gets rough. That's when you show the Divine Mother that you're her real devotee. Well, there's one final point I want to cover, and this is very, very important to understand. And I really hope I can explain this correctly. So send a quick prayer my way. When you read an autobiography of a yogi, that chapter on the resurrection of Swami Sri Yukteswar on that beautiful high heavenly astral planet of Hiranyaloka, maybe some of you had the thought, as I have had from time to time, oh, at the end of life, I want to go there. I want to be on Hiranyaloka at the feet of Swami Sri Yukteswar. So from time to time, this yearning, this desire has come up for me. But there's one big problem with it. I don't qualify. Swami Sri Yukteswar explains very clearly that to rise to the high astral planet of Hiranyaloka, first you have to have gone from Sabbakalpa Samadhi to Nirvikalpa Samadhi state, the highest Samadhi. So it's very clear, I don't qualify for Hiranyaloka. But I have a plan. Master has explained, has promised us really, that at the end of life, if we faithfully follow this path, one of the gurus will come and be with us as we make that transition to the world beyond. So, at the end of life, there will be Master, or Swami Sri Yukteswar, or maybe both of them. Wouldn't that be great? And then I'm going to have a conversation with them. I'm serious. And it's going to go something like this. Beloved Master, beloved Swami Sri Yukteswar, I know I don't qualify for Hiranyaloka, but can you get me in anyways? Do you understand, though, what I'm trying to convey here? Because I'm dead serious. He who created all of us, he who created all the rules, is far, far beyond any rule. All things are possible to God. If a young man is trying to get into a prestigious university, but he doesn't do so good on the test scores. But if his family knows the president of the college, so they call, and the president thinks, well, I know this family, and I know this young man, and he's going to do well. I'm going to relax the rules. And the young man gets in. If God feels you're ready, if God feels your love is deep enough, he can reach down, and in one instant, your karma is gone, and you are free. That can happen instantly. Master said, on the spiritual path, success is 25% the devotee's effort, 25% the blessings of the guru, and 50% the grace of God. And that's not just a nice little thought. On the spiritual path, that's a working principle. One of the highest laws in creation, the grace of God, the blessings of the guru. All things are possible. When it comes to the ultimate sense, there's really only one rule you need to follow on the spiritual path, in the ultimate sense, and that's love for God. Because on that one rule hangs all the rules. Jesus said that. If we love God deeply, then with great dedication, we will follow the sadhana the Guru gives, the spiritual routine. And if we love God deeply, we will very sincerely take Master's how to live principles and apply them in our daily lives. Out of our love for God, we naturally follow all the essential rules of the spiritual life, and yet not for one instant do we feel bound or restricted by any of them. It is our joy to follow the Guru out of the free choice of our hearts. Of course, you know, the end of life, there is a possibility that Master and Swami Sri Yukteswar will say, well, not yet. You have to wait for Hiranyaloka. And if that happens, what do you do? Well, then you have to sing that beautiful chant that Master used to sing. 1,000 years or till tomorrow I'll wait for you. You, just you. Sometimes I think we make too much of the time element in seeking God. And sometimes, in response to that question, how long is it going to take to find God? Sometimes my inner response is, who cares? Because when you have God, he's yours forever. And then time doesn't exist anymore. The question for us, the real question for us, I think it's not how long. It's, Lord, let this effort I make to love you, to know you, to seek you, not be lacking. How can I love you more? That's a wonderful question to take to God and Guru in your meditations. How can I love you more, my Lord? You have to keep seeking, striving, waiting, wanting, yearning for God. And always, always remembering all things are possible for him. Master said, if we love him with all our hearts, he wipes out our karma. So should we end our class with just a little meditation? Not too long. As you sit in meditation posture, lifting the gaze to the point between the eyebrows, keeping your attention fixed at that point, realize that that simple little act of itself is a very powerful act of yoga. And just feel by fixing the gaze, we're leaving the world of matter and entering that domain of spirit, where we can feel the love, the joy, the peace of God, of Guru in a greater way. And just feel you're sitting at the feet of God and the great ones, our blessed Gurus, and that they're just pouring their benedictions, their blessings of love and wisdom and peace upon our souls. Let us take a moment and the joy, the united peace and presence of Guru and God that we have felt this week. Now let us think of all of Master's devotees all over the world who could not come. And let us just send them a great blaze of divine love and blessings from God, from Guru, from our own souls. And realizing that for God, all things are possible, let us repeat this affirmation together. Father, thou art free from karma. I am thy child. I am free from karma. Now and forever. Father, thou art free from karma. I am thy child. I am free from karma. Now and forever. Father, thou art free from karma. I am thy child. I am free from karma. Now and forever. Om. Shanti. 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 Amen.